Hello, in this video, I want to go through all the cards that I would include if I was going to build a Krenko Mob Boss Commander deck. Focus on making and playing with a ton of Goblins and then untapping our commander as much as we can. First up, I have Battle Cry Goblin. For 2 mana, it's a 2/2. You pay 2, Goblins even told to +1/+0 and haste, which is good because tapping Krenko gives us Goblins that do not have haste, so they cannot attack. And then Battle Cry Goblin has Pack Tactics. Whenever it attacks, if you attack with creatures of total power 6 or greater this combat, create a 1/1 Goblin. Thus tapped and attack. Next, I have Battle Him. It adds red to your mana pool for each creature you control, and if you've ever played against or seen other people play with a Krenko Mob Boss deck, this guy pumps out 2, then 4, then 8, then 16. He creates a lot of Goblins, and Battle Him would give us a ton of mana. Next, Battle Beetleback Chief. Whenever it enters, create 2 1/1s. So this is 3 Goblins on 1 card. Blasphemous Act. Gotta have a way to board wipe when our opponent's boards get really messy. And you're going to have a lot of creatures, making the spell cost significantly less. Probably just 1 red. Blood Moon. You're playing mono red. You can get away with playing Blood Moon and slowing the heck out of your opponents. I believe when I created this deck list, I have like 29 mountains or something crazy in this list to play Blood Moon. Bogart Shenanigans. For 2 and a red, it's a Kindred Enchantment Goblin. Whenever another Goblin you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may have it deal 1 damage to target player. That includes all of your tokens, to board wipes, to combat, or even if you sacrifice them for mana. Brightstone Ritual. It adds red to your mana pool for each Goblin in play. Just like the previous card, it just will create a ton of mana. This one only costs 1 red. So it automatically pays for itself if you have at least 2 Goblins in play, which is not going to be hard. Coat of Arms. Each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least 1 creature type with it. You're going to have a lot of Goblins, and they're going to be very big with Coat of Arms. Conspicuous Snoop is red for a 2/2. You can play with the top card of your library revealed. You can cast Goblins from the top, and as long as the top card of your library is a Goblin card, it has all the activated abilities of that card. So access to more card advantage, and the Snoop can just become a bunch of other creatures. Dragon Fodder makes 2 1/1 Goblins. Gem Palm Incinerator is 3 mana for a 2/1. If you cycle it for 2, you can have it deal X damage to target creature where X is the number of Goblins on the battlefield. That's probably what you're going to want to do with it the majority of the time. Pay 2, draw a card, kill something. Pretty good. Especially on theme, you can just play it as a Goblin. General Crete the Bolt Breener for 2 and a red. It's a 2/2. Whenever 1 or more Goblins you control attack, get a 1/1 Goblin creature up in the tap and attacking. Whenever another creature you control enters, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. This card's great because it says each opponent. Krenko can tap and make 5 1/1s, and you deal 5 damage to each opponent, which is fantastic on a 3-drop. Goblin Bombardment. You could sacrifice a Goblin, or any creature, but a Goblin to deal 1 damage to target. If you set up some trump blockers, you can just sacrifice them, and they don't have trample. You don't have to worry about the excess damage, but Goblin Bombardment's great. Goblin Chieftain for 3 mana, it's a 2/2. It has haste, and it gives other Goblins you control +1/+1 and haste, which is great because, again, the Goblins that Krenko makes will just sit there until your next turn unless you can give them haste. Goblin Chirurgeon? Surgeon? Chirurgeon? I don't know how you say that. For 1 red, it's a 0/2, though. It sacrifices a Goblin to regenerate a creature. This card's great. You can just sacrifice one of the simple 1/1 tokens Krenko makes to regenerate and save Krenko. Goblin Grenade. You can sacrifice it to sacrifice a Goblin to deal 5 damage to a creature or player. Again, just sacrifice one of the 1/1s that Krenko makes. Goblin Instigator enters and makes a friend. Goblin King gives other Goblin creatures you control +1/+1 and Mountain Walk. So they're unblockable if an opponent controls a mountain. I feel like it's pretty likely that at least one of your players are just going to be playing red also, whether it's Mardu, Jeskai, Boros, whatever it is. But also Blood Moon can make it so all of their non-basics are mountains, and therefore most of your Goblins would be unblockable. Goblin Lackey. For 1 red, when it deals damage to a player, you may put a Goblin's permanent card from your hands to the battlefield. We just saw an enchantment that was a Goblin, but there's also a lot of creatures in the deck that are Goblins, and Goblin Lackey can just throw one of them into play. Goblin Matron for 3 mana. It enters, search library for a Goblin card, put into your hand and shuffle. Can get you whatever Goblin you need for the situation. Goblin Pile Driver. Pro red, so it can't be damage, enchanted, blocked, or targeted by anything blue. And then whenever it attacks, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking Goblin. This card is great, especially if you can give it Mountain Walk. It can steal like 20 damage on one attack. Goblin Recruiter, when it comes into play, search your library for any number of Goblin cards and put them in top of your library in the order you choose. Pretty good. Goblin Ringleader, haste 2/2 when it enters. Look at the top 4. You can put all Goblin cards into your hand, and the rest you buy in the library in a random order. It's really like a 4-mana 2/2. That's a Goblin that has haste. That lets you probably draw at least one card, if not more. Goblin Trash Master gives all Goblins +1/+1, but you can also sacrifice Goblins to destroy artifact. And there's a lot of artifacts in Commander. Mana Ramp, activators. I'm thinking equipment. I'm thinking artifact lands. I'm thinking some artifact creatures. Sacrificing, trading you one of your 1/1 Goblins for any of those cards is just fantastic, especially at instant speed. Goblin War Strike. It deals damage equal to the number of Goblins you control a target player. If you're working on finishing out the game, and you just took out one player and you have 2 players left, you can take out the smaller or the larger player with Goblin War Strike. Deal 10 damage for 1 red. Very good. Goblin War Chief makes all your Goblins 1 less and gives them haste. Fantastic card for a Krenko Mob Boss deck. Gorogoro, Disciple of Ryuse. 2 mana 2/2. 1 red. Creatures you control get haste. Pay 5. Create a 5/5 dragon with flying. So this would be like the only flying card in your deck. Make a little dragon that can fly, but you only do it if you're attacking with the modified creatures. +1/+1 counters probably won't come up too often, but there are equipment that you could play. Hezeret's Monument. Right creature spells cost 1 less, and whenever you cast a creature spell, you may discard cards to draw a card, just trying to get to one of your untapping effects, or trying to get to one of your haste effects, or one of your lords that give all +1/+1, like Hobgoblin Bandit Lord. For 3 mana, it's a 2/3. Other Goblins you control get +1/+1, and you can pay a red and tap it to deal damage equal to the number of Goblins that entered the battlefield under your control this turn to any target. That can be a player, and if you tapped Krenko to make 5 and then tap Krenko again to make 10 or 11 or whatever the number would be, it would be 10. That's 15 damage you can deal to something, and that can be a player. And then you can also untap Hobgoblin and then do it again. Hordling Outburst, 3 mana, make 3 1/1s. Howl Squad Heavy for 3 mana. Other Goblins you control have haste. Perfect. At the beginning of counter turn, make a 1/1 Goblin that attacks. Max speed, tap, add red for each Goblin you control. I love that ability. You're going to be starting your engines and dealing the damage very quickly. So being able to tap for red is really nice. Impact Tremors. Whenever a creature you control enters, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Again, if you have 4 Goblins, you tap Krenko and make 5 1/1s. Dealing 5 damage to each of your opponents is really going to knock them down. Higijigi Mirror Breaker. Tap, create a token that's a copy of target non-legendary creature you control. That token has haste. There's no Krenko combo in this deck. I just love this card. I think that copying any of your lords or any of your mana producers or any of your things that buff your Goblins is great. Especially if you have any Goblins that enter the battlefield and do something. So if they enter and draw a card, or they enter and check this, or they enter and tutor. Those are all things you can copy with Higijigi. Krenko's command makes 2 1/1s. Krenko 10 Street Kingpin. Whenever it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then create a number of 1/1 red Goblin creature tokens equal to its power. Very strong. Now you do have +1/+1 counters for modified. Legion War Boss. 3 mana, 2/2 with Mentor. Whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. Also modified for your modified card. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red Goblin creature token. That token gains haste and attacks. So, just continues to make more Goblins, which triggers all of your other effects. Lightning Greaves can give something haste and shroud. Giving Krenko haste to it taps immediately is perfect, and protecting it is very important in this build. Massive Raid deals damage equal to target creature or player to the number of creatures you control. This dealing damage to players is key. Having 10 Goblins, doubling that to 20 Goblins, and then dealing 20 damage to a player is going to be fantastic. Mog War Marshal. When it enters or dies, make a 1/1. So this guy by itself can enter, make a 1/1, and then don't pay the echo cost when he gives you another 1/1. So you have 3 creatures entering, it leaves 2 behind. Muxus Goblin Grandee. 6 mana, when it enters, reveal the top 6 of your library. Put all Goblin creature cards with converted mana cost 5 or less from one of them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Whenever Muxus attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each other Goblin you control. So this guy enters, and you can copy this as Higijigi. But it enters and gives you any Goblins you have in the top 6. They all cost 5 or less in this build, I'm pretty sure. So that's just fantastic. Pastelix Moms. For 3 mana, it's a 2/2. When it or another Goblin you control dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. You can sacrifice a goblin to make 2 goblins. Pretty good. Patriarch's Seal into Patriarchs. 3 mana for an artifact, tap, add 1 mana for any color, and then 1 tap, untap target legendary creature you control. Untapping Krenko is fantastic. Fulfuros, God of the Forge. When another creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. Tapping Krenko to make 10 1/1s, and then dealing 20 damage to each opponent is fantastic. That's half of the life that the game started with. You've probably already dealt damage to them. It's just insane. Quest for the Goblin Lord, 1 red. When a goblin enters, put a quest counter, and as long as it has 5 or more quest counters on it, creatures you control get +2/+0. This is going to make all of your 1/1s into 3/1s, which they can't block them all. Raid Bombardment. Whenever a creature you control with power 2 or less attacks, it deals 1 damage to the player or planeswalker that creature is attacking. This is another way to take out a player very quickly. Attacking each of your opponents with 5 1/1s automatically deals them 5 damage, and if they die, it's like sacrificing to deal damage. That's not a big deal. And then you can also sacrifice them on top of that. Ruby Medallion. Red spells cost 1 less. You're playing 1 color. You're going to want to cast multiple spells, and Ruby Medallion can make that happen. Runveld's Horde Master for 2 mana with a 1/1. Other goblins get +1/+1. Whenever it or another goblin you control dies, exile the top card in your library. If it's a goblin creature card, you may cast that card until the end of your next turn. That includes your tokens. This can really churn through and give you a lot of card types. A lot of card options. All right, this card and thought card types. Shared Animosity. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. This can make all of your 1/1s into 5/1s, into 6/1s, into 7/1s, into 10/1s really quickly. And this will kill players. And it's only 3 mana, which is fantastic. And the reason it's fantastic is because you can start your turn with only having 5 goblins, tap Krenko, go up to 10, play Shared Animosity, and immediately attack. And none of this is huge. Shared Animosity costs 3 mana. That is not a big cost. You could play this and immediately attack and surprise your opponents. Siege Game Commander, 3 red for a 2/2 when it enters, make 3 1/1s, and you can sacrifice a goblin to do 2 damage to any target. That's a slow sacrifice outlet, but it's just nice to have them. Skirt Prospector, sacrifice a goblin, add 1 red. This is a fantastic way to trade your tokens into real cards. Skull Cramp can turn one of your goblins into drawing 2, which is fantastic, especially if you have goblin dice triggers. Soul Ring, got a ram. Staff of Dominion, 3 tap, untap trap creature. There's some other things too, but really we're going to want to untap Krenko. Dean the Glittering Dagger for 2 mana. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has haste. At the beginning of each combat, untap it. An equipped creature has first strike as long as it's blocking or blocked by goblin or orc. So you can tap Krenko, begin your combat, untap it, tap it again, and if the goblins already have haste, they can immediately attack because you haven't declared attackers yet. That all happens at the beginning of combat. So this guarantees that if you have haste creatures to make your 1/1s, you're going to be able to attack with a whole extra ramping of Krenko. But even that by itself doesn't even matter. If you have like a creature entering dealing damage, and you already have 10 goblins, because you started with 5, you tap it, you went to 10, you tap it again, you go to 20. That's 10 more entering. Swiftfoot Boots, Hexproof and Haste, put it on Krenko. 1,000-Year Elixir, you can tap Krenko immediately as if it had haste. You can untap it with the 1,000-Year Elixir, which is great. Treasure Nabber, just on-theme goblin that whenever an opponent taps an artifact for mana, you gain control of it until the end of your next turn. Just gives you the toys you can play with. Vandal Blast destroys all artifacts you don't control. We don't have too many artifacts. We have some. But if push comes to shove and we gotta do it. Warren Instigator. Warren Instigator for 2 red. It's a 1/1 with double strike. When it deals damage to an opponent, put a goblin creature card from your house to the battlefield. Pretty good for ramping out 2 things really fast. Arena of Glory enters tap list to control a mountain. And you have a ton of mountains. It adds red, and you can pay red to tap it, exert it, and then add 2 reds. So Krenko would immediately have haste, which is great. Castle Ember can just be a source that comes into play untapped unless you control a mountain. You have a ton of mountains, and you can just buff your creatures if you have extra mana. Den of the Bugbear only comes into play untapped early game. Taps for a red. 4 tap, it becomes a goblin that makes the goblin when it attacks. Path of Ancestry comes into play tapped, but add mana to your commander's color identity, and if you spend that mana to cast your creature spell that shares creature type with your commander, i.e. a goblin, you scry a ward. Pretty good just to have on a land. And then 3 Tree City, it's the Nixos. 2 tap, choose a color, add an amount of mana to that color equals the number of creatures you control of that type. I can't believe the 3 Tree City already came out a year and a half ago. It's just August of 2024, which blows me away. all that to say, you're going to have a lot of goblins, and paying 2 to make 10 mana is going to be fantastic. But those are all the cards that I would include if I was going to build a Krenko mob boss. I do have some other like lightning bolts and ramping spells in the Mox Field deck list in the description. Please let me know your thoughts on this deck. What cards would you include? Have you played a Krenko before? What cards did I talk about that you didn't know existed? If you let me know all your thoughts and more in the comments, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and may your top decks be ever in your favor. Thank you.